I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war.
All right, guys, Banter for the people. We're here at Barney's Beanery, our little office home away from home situation.
That's right.
We've got LJ, and we have a very special guest today joining us. We have Stylist, creative director, just like putting us to shame on our outfits here at Barney's. We've got Clay. How's it going?
What's going on? Good to see you guys.
You got like the bedtime fit going on right now.
Hey man, listen, you put a little silk on something, you can make anything look better.
Yeah.
That's my little motto. So
that's
short
right.
set with some silk, we'll make it work.
So you and I met working at my last company, Pro Training. We had just like the best idea. I was just telling him this morning, I'm like, I'm so sad that creative coast to coast concept that we were working on like never really came to fruition.
I felt so sad about it.
I know.
Felt like, but realistically, I feel like our relationship from it is what life is about to me.
Totally.
Too. Like you end up taking what you need from every circumstance, and shoot, now we're here. So
yeah, that's so true.
It.
It's so true. And this is a better environment for all of us to be in anyways.
For
so
sure.
It definitely happened for a reason.
So like at Banter for the people, we love like the behind the scenes of what's actually happening. We try to be like really transparent of what's going on with our company, how we go from being people that like can set up the podcast to being the people that like are part of shows, like building out our own brand identity, helping other people with theirs. We're always kind of seen as accessory first, but then want to take it like to the next level. And I see some like through lines similarly with what it's like probably being a stylist, right? You're working with these huge brand identities. First, you got to make them look right, get them with the right threads, the right accessories. But like, I want to talk about how we broaden that and what your real mindset is going into working with someone like a Patrick Mahomes and where you start and how you get kind of to a finish line with that.
Yeah, no, for me, I think a lot of it is you're trying to get in the shoes of so many of these people, and like determine who they are, who they've been, and then who they want to be, but then also like how people want to receive them, right? And I think that that's really interesting because I've never thrown a football that far. Like, so I'm stepping, or I've never been 6'6", so like stepping into a lot of these guys' shoes and finding out where we can have similarities, I think naturally lends itself to like branding, because if I can be similar to this person that has such a different shape and does such a different thing than I do, other people can be relatable to them as well. And I think that that's the basis that I try to like really approach it with, because that's really like, that's how you can get people on board to believe in these guys, like outside of just liking them as athletes.
And then how do you bring your brand into it as well? Because at everything that they're presenting, it's a reflection of you. And then of course you also want to be known, not that every single style that you pull for people or design for people is going to be reflective of who you are. But say you pull like an accessory for an outfit and they don't decide to wear it and that pulled the whole outfit together, that's a reflection on you. So how do you make sure that you're bringing yourself into each look as well?
I think realistically, like that's why my style is really important. I try to, we kind of talked about this like off air. Used to kind of like downplay myself and feel like I needed to come in a uniform to like make everybody else feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But then I really realized like I'm selling a service and I'm selling people believing in being a different version of themselves. If I don't look like a different version than you do, what the hell makes you think you're gonna like want to buy into me? You know what I'm saying? So like, I've got to be willing to do some things that speak to my personality, but like are different, right? So I'm gonna wear, shoes that look like boots, or, you know what I'm saying? I might do something different like with my own style, and I like to accessorize and I like to let some of that sort of stuff talk for me. So like it makes it a lot easier to get those guys to buy into that. They're like, all right, I might not do like 5 of these, but I'll do 2. Yeah. And that allows people to like gauge and tell me what their comfort level is versus mine.
Well, and especially working with athletes, because this is not typically a space that a lot of guys are comfortable in.
Yeah.
And so pushing them to be like, oh my God, you're wearing that cuff. That looks really dope. Like maybe I could pull that off.
I think like, so as an athlete, for me, not an athlete at their level, but like, because I wasn't at their level, I think realistically, I wanted to look like the guys that were in the NFL. So style, even as an athlete, was super important to me. Like being able to rock a bandana when I took off my helmet like Dion, because I thought that shit looked cool. Like, you know, or being able to wear a sleeve, maybe even on the football field like Allen Iverson, but you're like applying these different elements that you thought were culturally cool.
Oh, I cared about what cage I was wearing.
Yes.
I was like, I introduced like the visor to our team, and then I like everybody started wearing the clear ones, so I wore the dark ones, and then I had to like fight for being able to wear a darker version on the field where the refs are like, is that legal? I'm like, I checked it all out, it's legal. And then the whole team just is like, we're throwing them all on, right? But that's the fun stuff in that.
Like, look good, play good.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think, like, you know, when you apply that mentality, I think a lot more people can like understand that style is important, right? Like you look at a quarterback like Sam Bradford, he's not gonna be somebody that's like, oh, he had a flashy outfit or whatever the case may be, but the dude really cared about his sleeves. He's Sammy Sleeves, right? So like everybody has a thing that is a preference.
Clearly you're an Eagles fan.
Yes. Sorry, hate to do it to you,
because like we have a different opinion on Sam Bradford.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
Vikings
sure.
Fans.
I mean, I appreciate him.
I'm not the greatest, but you know what? Like I will take it because the Sam Bradford situation brought the Carson Wentz situation, which brought the
Super Bowl
situation.
Well, yeah, and a Super Bowl.
So I will take all of those things lining up to be in this position right now. So
it's so funny.
I don't know how we digress into Sam Bradford, but his sleeves were very important to him, and therefore I think everybody has shit to say.
So how do you even get these types of relationships? And then like, what's the first conversation that you have once you meet someone and introduce yourself like, yo, I am a stylist. I'd love to work with you. And how do you get to know them from that space?
I find it like really hard sometimes because a lot of my relationships are really about doing good work. Like a lot of it is word of mouth. I don't really go out maybe as like much as I used to or as much as I should to meet new people. So I think a lot of really what it is doing work that makes people want to talk about it and and leading with that. And at least that's how I've gotten to some of these opportunities now where, you know, I worked with a Nigel Sylvester who happened to be signed to the same agency as Patrick Mahomes, which then opened the eyes of that agent and the opportunity space to work with other people maybe on that roster. So, you know, like strengthening the relationship. I believe in strengthening the relationships that you do have and working the ones that you do have. And ideally those things lead to other opportunities that maybe come to you.
So you actually gave that agent value of saying, yo, you're his agent or you're working with him. Yo, this could be something else that you could provide in this space. Let me be accessory on your team, which then strengthens his brand.
Right. And
to go even further back though, like I think from my brief introduction to the styling and fashion world, especially in the athlete side, you guys, it's a very small world. So when you were coming up, like a lot of the big stylists who are all representing a lot of the different athletes, you're like friends with them and you like came up with them, right?
You come up on, I think so you come up underneath them,
right?
Which I think realistically,
because who did you come up under?
So I worked with Rachel Johnson.
Rachel Johnson,
she was
okay.
with, I mean, which she put on, I mean, so many people in the industry from Katia
she's
and
huge,
LJ to, you know, people that now
was she with LeBron?
She was with LeBron.
Yeah.
So she was with LeBron and D Wade, and I believe Serena Williams first.
Okay. Before
Keisha. Before Keisha.
Yeah.
So Keisha also worked with Rachel as well.
Got it. Okay.
And they, you know, helped establish what that clothing rules look like in the NBA. So that I think really established a lot of the industry.
They changed the game.
Yeah, like it was the necessity for it.
Wow.
At that point.
So they got the transition between you don't have to wear suits all the time.
Before that,
because like AI was the first person that really pushed that threshold, right?
Yeah. And I believe that rule comes in like 03, 04.
Well, that rule was because of AI.
It's because of AI.
Yeah.
Right. And
the suit rule.
Slowly, Carmelo Anthony.
Right.
And I think that really forced the necessity for them to focus on what they wore and like their wardrobe. And it was such a massive transition because these guys are coming from being 21-year-old or 20-year-old, you know, guys that are wearing jerseys themselves off the court.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So now they've got to come into like wearing suits or wearing things that look different than what they're used to wearing. So then
things that
need,
don't fit them because they're big people.
So the need for a stylist, I think, stepped in really at that point and helped. I think the people that were at the forefront of that, I think, really opened up the door for people like myself.
Yeah. And then how did you meet her to even get your foot in the door?
That's a great question. I do. Rachel was doing Instagram. Rachel was doing this thing called Motivation Monday. She would post and wanted to reach out to people that wanted to be stylists and give them an hour on Monday to answer their questions. And I remember being super excited. It was like 2014. A few things had happened that kind of lined up at that time frame. I learned about what being a stylist was because I grew up family friends with Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
He wins Rookie of the Year, and we're in Vegas for the Summer League, and this is the year when like he's crossing everybody up in the USA team. It's like Kobe, Melo, LeBron, like right back to back, that highlight. And we come back to his room. He's got all of these shoes all over, like lined up across the wall, and I'm like, bro, I've been with you all day. Like, where'd you get all these shoes from? He's like, I paid a stylist to buy them. And I was like, wait a minute. You say pay, like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, I paid this guy so that he would shop for me. And I was like, bro, I've been with you all day. You didn't pay me to like tell you what to buy.
Yeah.
Like, you always steal my clothes. Wait a minute. And he's like, I'm like, well, how much did you pay him? He's like, I paid him $8,000. And I was like, that's all I need.
You're like, I can do that.
Holy shit.
Ready to go.
So now that's the first time you really learned of the industry in itself.
First time I heard about it. First time I even knew that this was a job, the idea, the thought process to me, I think like all bubbled at that point. I'd never thought anything about this. And then I started to look around.
You stayed up late that night being like, what the
I was confused. I'm like, okay, like, all right, so there's TV shows, there's billboards, there's commercials. There's all, and I was like, oh shit, someone puts clothes on all of these people. That's a job.
Yeah.
And it just really took off from there. And I think at the time the internet of social media was like really booming. And I ended up and I was in New York City, right? So like I ran into June Ambrose, who's Jay-Z's stylist, coming out of Louis Vuitton. And I was just like, hey, I want to do what you do. How do I do it? She's like, go work at Studio Services, which is where all of the stylists congregate. And you'll meet them and learn how to, pull clothing and learn the process, right? So I listened to her. I ended up working there, and that was how I met Rachel and all of these sort of people. And between that,
what you did brilliant in that moment is you actually knew who she was, and actually knew the face. And I think too many people are always looking at like, yo, I want to be LeBron's stylist, so I'm gonna go talk to LeBron. You're never gonna talk to LeBron.
Right.
But there's so many people behind the scenes, especially like in this like new Instagram era. You kind of can figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you can do your little FBI shit and be like, oh, that person.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you go down to them, they generally don't have 10,000 people watching their shit. They're pretty easy to access, and they're willing to talk as long as you're willing to collaborate.
And as long as you're willing to work.
Yeah.
And I think that was really the thing. Like, all right, hey man, like I just want to work. I really just want to work with you guys because I want to like figure out how to do this. And I turned it into a job, and like anything else, like you end up like making these connections and relationships. You start off doing it for like really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I was really excited to like work for like $200 a day, and I was like, this is amazing. And then you hear somebody else is getting paid $500 a day, and you're like, oh no, that's not amazing. Like, this is terrible. So like you start to kind of figure out what you want to do for yourself from that point. And making relationships, for me, I think making relationships with like managers, making relationships with people that work at companies have been my strongest ability. Mm-hmm. And that helps me realize, okay, like I can do well in business, and it starts to open up your mind to.
That's your transition into like expanding your company and your brand too.
For sure. And I think also like who you work with they're placing your life for a reason. And it's not always like they're supposed to be your best friend or anything like that, because often it's not the case.
Too many times people do try to like always just buddy up. And it's like, hey, you have to cross this weird intersection of one. They have to feel comfortable in the moment. So it has to feel like you're bros.
Yeah.
But they also have to know you're on the clock while they're at the ESPYs. And you're not at the ESPYs because you're just Patrick Mahomes' buddy.
Right.
You have to make sure that his collar doesn't look like shit.
Yeah.
And that's a hard place to blend. You got to love it. And we walk that line all the time where it's like, you might be at the casino, you might be with Dana White. You're on the clock. These guys are gambling money, having fun. This is Friday night for them.
Right.
You're just lucky enough to be able to get paid on Friday night, or lucky enough to even be there to hopefully build enough relationships to make something happen in the future.
And let's be real too, like every Friday night that you are even allowed, if you will, into this space could be your last Friday night making money, period, in this industry. Right. So when you think about it like that, just because I've worked with these people doesn't mean that I work with these people. Yeah. So I've got to consistently expand my business so that I can even continue to sustain myself. Just because I worked with you twice doesn't mean I work with you all the time.
How do contracts work on that side? Is it like, hey, I'm working with someone for a season, or I got you one off here?
It's relative. Okay. It really depends on how you negotiate it, right? So like, I think the number one thing that I've really learned is this is an entertainment business, and you get nothing that you've earned. You get everything that you negotiate. I think when you work with businesses,
it's hard to know your value.
Yeah.
How?
Because like you initially started like, oh, this is a job. I'm willing to do this job just for lunch. And then you're like, wait, people are paying rent. Yeah. People are buying houses off this job.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat everybody for everything they're worth, but like you got to find where that value line is, and it's hard to find early.
Absolutely hard to find. And you also then you start to get through these next levels, and you can't really think with someone else's wallet either and say, well, they have it $50 million, so I can charge $1 million because
you're not there yet.
Worth it. Yeah, like so it's scalability. I think is really, really important in any level of like entrepreneurship, and figuring out what your price is, for me, is one of the most difficult things. I'll be like fully transparent about it. I get like a lot of anxiety talking about money, but I've realized that my combat for that is making the business valuable for the people I'm working with and making myself valuable. Because when I can make myself valuable, I can almost play the game of what's your budget versus them asking me what's my price.
Yeah.
Right. Because now I've made myself an entity that you want, and I can determine what you have to pay me.
Yeah.
And you know, I try to use that as I get better at negotiating, because I think that's a very difficult thing to do for yourself. It's very hard to negotiate for yourself.
I struggle with that.
Yeah. What's your personal price tag? How do you, in all seriousness, when someone asks you just on the street, like, how much would you charge me for you to do your thing for me? That's a weird question.
Right. When it's a job that you are kind of willing to do for free.
Right.
Because you fucking love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's so much money in the space. You are deserving of a huge chunk.
It's also really hard coming from like, you've been an entrepreneur for most of your career, as like all of us have been, because when you're coming from like a corporate environment and you've just been in a corporate environment, you know what the hourly rate is.
Right.
But you're like, whenever you have that, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because that hourly rate that you charge your client or whatever, that comes with the backing of the entire corporation. Like, that's not your number.
It's not your rate.
Yeah, that's
like these
not
desk
your
jobs,
rate.
they literally get 4 hours to play Candy Crush.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like they're making $110,000 a year. And it's like,
and then they
if
charge
we ever take that
4
4-hour break, now we're working for free again.
You're working for free again, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. So I think the other thing about it is too, I think you have to, for me at least, I've had to get to a space where like I made myself valuable, and then I know exactly how much value I bring, even if the dollars aren't rolling into them yet. And that's the thing that I really have to believe in, because what I'm doing is a social science, right? I'm making you believe in who you want to be. That is a very non-tangible service. So I've got to understand that the value of that is almost like the value of a coach. You can't really put the value, a dollar amount, on a coach motivating someone else to be who they need to be today, right? So for me, have to like look at it and say, well, I'm going to bring you all of these valuable things off the field or off the court that are going to put dollars into your pocket. Therefore, I'm going to charge this amount up front.
How do you get from, okay, I'm pressing a shirt, I'm just steaming a shirt, starting to see the industry, to go, I want to walk into the next conversation? Because it is hard going from accessory to something of value in that world.
Because a lot of people would be like,
where does that conversation start for you? It's like, I'm just trying to help, and then, hey, I've been thinking about some things.
In the
You just
beginning,
weave it.
I'm the type of person that I don't believe there's a reason for me to be in the room unless I'm being valuable. And the compensation for that comes once I've proven my value in my head. But like, I'm going to start having that conversation from the beginning. Like, yeah, I'm steaming this shirt, but if we're in the room and someone's talking and we're tossing around ideas, I'm going to toss out what I think is a good idea.
Were you always like that though?
Always.
Okay.
Like, I think, again, I came into it being connected to someone that was an entity already and knowing I don't want to be perceived as your groupie
Yeah.
or your
Yeah.
friend
Yeah.
or and I'm older, right? Like I'm 2 years older than him. So like, I think just on a human level, you might be the draw, but there's a personal value here that I have
For sure.
bigger than, because I know things that you don't, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
And and then this is where I think this conversation gets really interesting is not only can you be putting this shirt on where he's like, yo, you found a new brand, a new streetwear brand or a new something else that you're like, yo, he fucks with it. Helping him even understand, dude, this is a really small brand that like we could maybe invest in.
for sure.
And let's broaden the range. Cause like as you feel like an accessory, he also feels like a freaking pawn in a big game too. It's the NFL. This is the biggest mob in the world.
Yeah.
And you have a short career but you have so much more value. And even for him to understand his value point.
Well, it's funny because a lot of these guys, people forget that like they're so young and they're being thrown in a million different places and they're being pulled a million different ways.
Yeah.
And having worked in the sports industry for a long time, the constant contact is like you're babysitting, and you are because they are, and they're getting pulled a million. I remember once I was doing a media hit, and it was this NBA player who was like killing it, and he looked at me and he goes, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And I was like, yes,
Yeah,
you
can
can
do
go to the bathroom.
You own the room.
You just like looked at me like I was your teacher. Like, please go to the bathroom. Like, oh my God.
That would be the best thing.
Yeah, like
You went to the
please.
bathroom,
But it's just like
that.
you finally realize that like, oh my God, these guys have a million things that are being thrown at them and they need like a sounding board.
They're so young.
They're
Everybody's so young.
young.
And I think it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that these are people. And when you realize that these are people,
Yeah.
in all honesty, the same way that you would provide value if it were your family and you're like, you know what, we're making dinner today and somebody needs spaghetti and I know how to make spaghetti, you're gonna start going to make spaghetti, right? Don't overcomplicate the shit. If
Don't make gnocchi, make spaghetti.
Yeah, it's the same thing in anywhere else. And like, I think that's really the number one thing that I think I carry myself with is the athlete mentality. Like, nobody's better than me here. And as much as I can respect the things that you've accomplished, you don't know what I know, and I don't know what you don't.
But you do it in a very humble way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Like
I
you
have
do.
to feel, but I also have to carry a level of confidence with that because these are confident guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you've ever been in these scenarios, which I know you guys have, everybody smells weakness. So if you
Mhm.
don't believe in your thing, I can respect you better if we're operating on this space of I know you believe in your thing like I believe in my thing, and do you want it? And I
Yeah.
think that if we look at any like sports sales movie, you watch Air, right? Phil Knight has to come in with a level of like confidence, almost arrogance of like, yeah, we're not the big company right now, but we're going to be just like, you're going to be the big company. So you should partner up
Right.
with us and ride with me. And I think that energy for me really, really, really helps me with these guys because we can like relate on that. We're all trying to get it. We're all trying to feed our family, and that makes everybody the same, male, female, black, white, because we all have a level of hunger, and you're seeking to achieve something similar at the core. You want your people to eat just like I want my people to eat.
Because you might go back and you're like, you could sleep at night and be like, damn, man, actually the only value I have is like, I just know how to like put color combos together. Fuck. But at the same time, Patrick Mahomes could go back home and be like, I just kind of know how to throw a football good.
Right.
Fuck. What am I doing here? And we all know that we're trying to live a life for more.
Mhm.
We want to breathe positivity, love, all these things into the world. We want to be inspiring for people. He's put on a platform here. He's like an icon. He can inspire people. And once we get back to those bases, is like, look, one, thank God you live in a system in a world right now that if you throw a football good, you can be worth $1 billion. But then how can we use that to the best potential to make sure that like it goes somewhere, and then you
Yeah.
could feed your family till for the end of existence. His great grandkids can be like, yo, I had this one like great grandpa that just like he knew how to throw a football. Cool.
And he really knew how to do it. And I think the other thing about it is the more these guys are able to differentiate their incomes, the more you realize what's possible for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm able to like be around these situations. So like, why would I not realize, oh, so Versace wants to pay him? Well, Versace wants to pay him, and I'm the guy that knows Versace, the people at Versace. Why would I not get 1%? That actually makes a ton of sense. That is valid. It's not like, oh, I need to know how to do business. It just makes sense. If I were doing anything in the world and I were the middleman and I knew that relationship, I should get some value.
If you made
for it.
those handshake,
For sure.
it's like, hey, there's something here. As long as you actually like quarterback it the right way, right?
Yeah. And understand that you're like trying to make sure that everybody's needs are met. And that's my number one thing, because like I realized that I knew how to do that well on set. I knew how to balance everybody's needs. Like, okay, the magazine wants this shot so that they can showcase this product and get their ad revenue. The athlete wants this shot so that he looks good or she looks good in a light that is representative of what they want to look like off the field. The manager wants them to look spick and clean so that they're not a bad brand.
They can bring a new sponsor in,
get more contracts, right? So when you understand what everybody wants to do, that's where you can get value, because it's like, okay, well, I can achieve what they want and what they want and what they want all at one time. And really what that is making this person look high sheen, making this person, come across like they're effortless. And maybe it doesn't matter what they're wearing if they're embodying that energy.
Right.
So really, this doesn't really have to do with clothes. This has to do with toying with this person's emotions enough to make them feel good and carry this look that I would like them to carry. Or
you're like the puppet string, like you're controlling everybody and you're having to understand every single aspect, which is like so difficult because you also have to like adjust your persona to speak and to be an expert on each level, because the manager is thinking about the manager and the athlete's thinking about the athlete,
right? The
magazine is thinking about their ad sales, but it's like none of them, they're not really thinking about all of them combined. It's wild.
Yeah, and
that's how I feel.
Something about like it's so funny that you say that, right? Because like you said something about like zooming out 3,000 feet, right? 300,000 feet.
Yeah, 30,000 feet. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like that's the biggest thing, like because that's having a vision about a project or a vision about your company or a vision about your client, because you're able to say, okay, well, if all of these things interact like this is a way that we can make it bigger, make it broader, scale it.
Because that's like one of the things that I think I had to do to, build Purple Banter with Katia was I always was looked at as just like the idea guy. Yeah. And I was like, damn, that's great. That's cool. But you also have to be like an asset to the system in order to do it well. So it's like I had to go back in order to add value enough to then get back to the place of like being able to look at it like that. And that's what you're able to do, is like you're able to see from the accessory on the wrist to why that matters on the carpet to then what we're going to do about it on Monday. Yeah. And so you're actually walking from like being able to be, you already had all the tool stuff. Now you can broaden your vision. What do you want to be like remembered for in 10 years or 20 years even, of like, where does your business end up actually going? And what are you fighting for?
That's a great question. I think I'm fighting to represent stories in totality, right? I think that in the grand scheme of things, I'm remembered for telling my own story, because I think that that's what everybody that creates ultimately would like to do.
Yeah.
And I think that could come through like a lot of different mediums. A lot of that is going to be through fashion, obviously, because that's my core. But I also think that some of that is through working with some of the guys that I'm working with and being able to create brands on their behalf.
Yeah.
Being able to shift the industry such that we understand that there are a lot more roles within entertainment, within sports, within fashion. And I think that if you can, for me, if I could do that, that would be really the greatest legacy that I could have, is making sure that I bridge the gap for people to be able to create sustainable businesses for themselves based on their interests.
Yeah.
That's like, I think that goes for anything, and allows me to kind of like play around with a lot of different spaces.
So within that broadness of, let's say you were the best quarterback in the league right now,
Yeah.
with your knowledge of some of the business happening in the background, what do you think some of these guys are missing at the moment? That you would immediately say, like, dude, we could pull that lever and it's all available.
I think one of the main things is people don't have a clear identity. And I think when you have a clear identity with how you present yourself, it's the easiest way to create a clear identity everywhere else. Because when you present yourself in a black suit all the time, people know what to expect. So therefore, when you come across and you endorse that beer as the Dos Equis guy, you have that's like now a clear thing. We're like, oh, the guy in the black suit, that's the guy that means business. That's the guy that's interesting. That's the guy that's cool.
But how do you find that when we've already said they're like so young and being pulled? And anyone, doesn't have to be like an athlete. I feel like I struggled this in my 20s of like, okay, how do you find exactly who you are and then project that and grow with it as well? Like, you seem to understand how to do it, but I think a lot of people struggle with it.
For me, I don't know. I think I really look at it and I try to make it simple. I think when you can have repeatable, solid looks for yourself and play with fabrications from a style perspective, that's the easiest way to communicate something.
Yeah.
So like, all right, I have a repeatable style, a repeatable aesthetic, and people know that they can expect this.
So you like that? Like, you're like, let's build a little bit of a box for a second and then bounce out of it when it's necessary, but like, let's establish something.
I think you establish something and then you change it and tweak it as it goes along.
I like that.
And I think that that's the thing that really makes it really like easy to follow, because even if you look at Chris Paul, his outfits are different, but he has a very repeatable style. It's often going to be something boxy on the top. It's going to be cropped on the bottom. You're going to play with a little bit of proportions, but realistically, it's going to speak to a consistent message for himself, whether that's HBCUs, whether that's Jordan brand, whatever that situation is, he's going to have a message through his wardrobe.
Yeah.
Cool. So when he sees a t-shirt out and it's a social activism t-shirt, it's easy for him to buy that thing because he's like, oh yeah, this is my thing. This is what I do.
And wear it to dinner. So it's like your brand is consistent. It doesn't have to be in the tunnel.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's
be,
where
like, hanging out.
The most interesting case study in fashion to me is Kanye West, because he's backpack, pink polo rapper, producer coming out, and like, he just hit you on the head with it. You knew when he was on stage, he had a backpack and a polo and like wrecked the game with it. And then fast forward 15 years, and he's like, I'm gonna look homeless every single time you see me.
Every single day.
And I'm gonna look like some like walking apocalyptic character. Right. And so it proves that like it's good to build a box and you can break it whenever you feel like it.
And he gave you clear eras. I think
that's
every
true.
album
That's
speaks
true.
to a particular wardrobe and a particular aesthetic, which ultimately speaks to his particular mindset.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I for me, I really learned that from actors. Like, if you look at actors filming boxing movies, they're often wearing champion wardrobe. Why? They need to be in the mindset of that thing in order to embody that character. Well, they're doing that off screen. That's method acting. Yeah. Well, then that means that we can apply that concept and apply method acting to whatever it is that we're doing. If it's, for example, we'll watch and see like, okay, the X quarterback hasn't gotten a haircut in 6 weeks because he's going into the darkest tunnel, right? Why? That communicates to the public that he means business. He cares about this. This is important to him. He doesn't give a shit about anything other than football. I can build around an aesthetic also around that. Yeah. It might not cost as much, but realistic, we're like, okay, cool. We're going to do things with a little bit more stains. We're going to do wider fits, baggier fits. I can now create a character around that particular message that we're trying to tell. And when you create clarity in your message, it makes it much easier for like a person like me to do my job and create a aesthetic around that character.
Yeah. That brings me back to the AI, just like talking about practice. And he's like, wearing the baggy jeans, bringing the do-rags out, huge fucking chains, the baggiest shirts. But then he would throw a suit on every once in a while. You're like, oh, fuck, this is a real time right now.
Right. This must mean something.
This is real.
Yeah.
Who do you think's doing it best right now? Like in the industry, whether it's a stylist or a player or a whole team where you're like,
or a brand.
Damn, I look up to this crew. Like, I learn from them a little bit when they step out.
Okay, so I think that's like best is such a relative question.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I who I look up to, I think Jerry Lorenzo is amazing. I think Jerry Lorenzo does an amazing job of playing in the spirit of sports, the sports arena, but also in fashion. And
were you at the bowl?
I was at the bowl.
Oh my God.
That was sick.
Did you see?
No.
Okay. He did this whole show. I mean, you were there. Tell us about it. But it was a whole show at the Hollywood Bowl. They had a really dope billboard right there.
Okay.
Of it, like announcing it. And then I'm assuming like everyone who's anyone in fashion.
Everybody was there.
Was
Every
there.
look that came out was incredible.
It's just coming out of the Hollywood Bowl. Like how iconic.
Yeah, and you can and the sound stage and being
Yeah.
able to have the support of the artists like a Pusha T being able to like be at your premiere and
Yeah,
you're
who was there? Like,
premiering-
who performed?
so Push performed. You've got like John Legend that was also there
Okay.
and did something and I think helped score it.
And was
like-
it his summer or his fall collection?
It was his fall collection.
Yeah.
But then they've got like, so I think the thing that's cool is like you have so much delineation in your brand. You've got the big brand that is the Fear of God. You've got Fear of God Athletics, which is in collaboration with now Adidas, and being able to like premiere a shoe with Adidas at the show. To me, I think, and also have like a clear brand of his brand and aesthetic is like his family. That's clear. So anybody that collaborates with him, that could be a very easy initial way to collaborate with those people, right? Because this is something that I'm focused on my family. That's what I promote through my brand. That's how I utilize this. I think that I really like, people that have a clear aesthetic in that way. And, it's kind of like Ralph Lauren, like you have this one brand, but then you can have like all of these offshoot brands that kind of come from it as well. Like you've got Purple Label, you've got, Polo, you've got all of these different things that sit underneath one house.
Okay.
Those are the guys that I think that are really cool and that I try to emulate my business model after.
And I guess maybe like last question, who is a person in sports media that you see that you're like, man, I wish I worked with them. I could help with a little bit of a tweak on where they're at.
Personalities or athletes?
Personalities, athletes, where you see someone, you're like, yo, you have all this brand identity. It's so perfect, but like, I could really come in and maybe help like turn this up one notch.
I know who, but
so for me, I'm trying to look at some of the younger athletes. I'd really like to work with Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards,
our guy.
I think he's like
he's gonna be the
cool.
guy.
I think he.
How
can
good was
really
he in that
play.
movie?
He was great in the movie.
Oh my God.
I'd love to see more of his personality.
See, that's the question as Minnesotans. It's always like, is Minnesota holding you back? Because they always say that about small market. I think the answer is no, but they always the
It's a good place to
Timberwolves-
start. You just can't end in
The
Minnesota.
Timberwolves franchise has historically stifled people's creativity and their like ability to brand themselves. And I hate that Anthony Edwards is like kind of falling into that because I think he's amazing.
I think you have to have I think realistically, if he had a clear niche,
He's a team.
it would
Yeah.
make sense. He could create something that made sense.
He could
Like,
make a
I don't
like
mind a small
dope
market.
like jacket line.
That's the thing. Small markets offer you opportunities
Yeah.
that like other places don't
100%.
because the weather is different often. So like realistically from the style perspective, I actually always like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not putting a fur on a guy that's in LA,
Yeah.
but I am in a guy that is in Minnesota.
You get
Yeah.
snow scenes, summer scenes,
Yeah.
fall. Like it's all so
Layer.
different.
I really like the idea of that with Anthony Edwards. The other person that I think I would love, it might be a little too late, is Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Durant, realistically, as he transitions into being likely a color commentator,
Yep.
someone that has a voice,
He's gonna have
within the
somewhere in
space.
media.
I think it's gonna be something in media.
He won't do mainstream because he hates mainstream.
I
but
think he might though, because the Rich
'Cause the
Kleiman
boardroom,
thing,
yeah.
like all of that element of him, you've seen more of this like media personality side
True.
of him. I'd like to rebrand his whole outreach to the public. I think that would
Yeah.
be really cool, and being able to do that, I think through having a different look, I think would actually make him, I think, come across cool.
You know who I think was like playing around in the space and had his whole line, who I think could actually just explode more, is Michael Strahan.
Michael Strahan would be incredible
Because he had like his line with, I think it was like Men's Warehouse or something like that. And then for a while, I remember they were doing it. He was pairing it with some of the NFL draft picks of like, oh, I'm wearing Michael Strahan for Men's Warehouse. Well, it was an easy sponsorship situation, but he has such a personality and he has like exploded his media side that I think he could go even further and be a little bit more.
He's incredible because I think he's just a media talent, like outside of being an athlete.
Oh, 100%. He's on Good Morning America.
Yeah, like he's like amazing.
He's like the guy.
He's really amazing.
Yeah.
So
you can go from like morning show and stuff like that. Like it's crazy.
That's a rare skill set.
Yeah.
That really
And
is
then
a
to
rare
like
skill
do
set.
Good Morning America or whatever. Is he on Good Morning or Today Show? I can't remember.
No, yeah, what I don't even
I
know.
think it's
anymore.
that,
it was
but
GMA to start.
GMA,
Yeah.
and then he flies during football season. He flies to LA, does NFL, Fox, and then takes a flight home to get up at 4 a.m. to do GMA the next day. Like that's insane.
That's incredible. Well,
Yeah.
no, I think KD would be the one though. KD to me, I think realistically would be a really cool case study because he has been out in the world for so long that he has a clear people have a
He's
clear
lost
POV
his
on
brand.
him.
Too,
Yeah, I'd like
think.
to be able to create a brand that is around this new version of him where he embraces like, listen, I'm gonna talk a little bit of shit.
Yeah.
I think I'm really great.
Yeah.
If you don't think so, that's a you problem. And I actually think that that's a really healthy way to think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have to agree with you on that. I
Yeah.
can still say personally, I wouldn't have gone to the Warriors, but I also aren't you, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think when you can build a brand, like Charles Barkley's brand is literally that. I like me. Really don't care what you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's so good.
It makes it so easy for people to like, okay, he's gonna say some outlandish stuff, but we can kind of accept it from him because he's not gonna give a shit what you think.
That
about
washing
the
the jersey clip of him, how he talks about how he used to, like back in the day, we had to like shower with our jerseys on to clean it during off days when like they were traveling. And I forget who his co-host is in the moment, and I think Shaq's there too. They're like, no, we didn't. Like, dog, we like hand washed our stuff. But he's like, no, we had to wash it in the shower. We had to wear it in the shower. And it's like, what are we talking about?
Like, no, you did. We didn't have to do that. You chose to do that.
Could you do anything for Kirk Cousins?
So after
He's a
watching this
brand.
show, the dad stuff is
Yeah.
a brand.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
brand.
So
That
some
stuff
bird
is a
dogs and
brand.
stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
We can get busy on that, and
Okay.
he could easily, honestly, be a Vineyard Vines guy at the end of the
Totally.
Ooh,
I'm
yeah.
not mad.
Just
Totally.
all Nantucket vibes.
He's just
Yeah.
a Nantucket guy. I'm not mad at
No,
the
he's
idea
Midwestern,
of
but
him
yes.
becoming this. You know what? Maybe I kind of want to live on a little bit of water. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I've got a lot of money, but I'm going to act like I don't. That's his whole brand.
Well, you can also-
so you can work with that.
We can work with
Because
that.
that's
You can also
that's the
dress
box
up
you like. You're like, dude,
yeah.
this is easy.
It's a thing.
Boom, boom, boom. Just polos, khakis, tight. Maybe he could probably bring
Belt.
like the guys' dresses up, like you know how girls wear the hide. He could bring his belt up high
The
over the
high-waisted
belly
belt
button. Yeah.
with the khaki.
You can change the game on it.
The look right here, it's a consistent look, and it's one that we're all familiar with. We know several gents that dress like Kirk.
Yes.
We do. We do.
That's the thing that surprised me about the show. It didn't surprise me, but it was like Kirk Cousins is every guy in Minnesota that like my friends from college are turning into, honestly.
And he
Like-
is a sex symbol. After the Kirk O'Chain stuff, he became a little bit of a sex
He
symbol.
looked good. He looked good.
Yeah.
He looked cool.
He looked real
You know what I'm
cool.
saying? Let me give
They
him
were
this, like,
patronizing
Clark
him
Kent
though.
thing. We could give
They
him
were
this
not
Clark
with
Kent.
him.
They were not with him. on that.
The K, but you know what? He flipped it because then he got the K Jeweler sponsorship, and
Listen,
everyone's laughing.
The worst
It's the
thing
worst
ever.
But my thing is, even weird stuff when it's on brand, I love
It
it.
worked.
I
It's
love
so
it.
quirky.
Because like if it works, it works. We
Because
grew
K
up on
Jewelers
weird
is
stuff.
perfect. Of like, oh, let me wear the chains, but it's K Jewelers. It's at the mall.
Right,
like,
right. It's at the mall.
It's at the mall.
It's accessible for
Yeah.
everybody. I think, like, bro, we grew up on beer ads screaming "What's up" at us, and that somehow turning into cultural.
You could do
moments.
it.
Yeah.
You can do it. Find something that works, and people are gonna connect with, and people are gonna run with it.
All right, I have one more. Is Cam Newton a good dresser?
So I work with Kim.
So you put those hats on him?
I did put a hat on him.
Okay, all right.
Met Gala. We did the Met Gala in 2019, and we did Paris Fashion Week in 2019 as well. I love Cam. I think Cam is really cool. I just always constantly want to take one or two things off.
Okay.
If out of 11 pieces on the body, I could take away 2, I'd be like, this is actually a very calm, good fit.
Well, he's the Doja Cat of the NFL, basically.
I love the hats on Cam. It's his thing. I love it.
He does have a thing.
He's got a
which
thing.
is just wild, obnoxious, all this shit.
It's
But
almost
I
like
love the
Russell
hats.
Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has a thing.
Or he's maybe Lady Gaga of the NFL.
I like Gaga.
He's Lady
It's gonna
Gaga.
be a little jarring.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little jarring, but it's going to catch your eye. And that's the thing. Like, realistically, I actually don't hate that, provided you're consistent.
And we always need that.
Yeah.
But he's the Met Gala on Monday Night Football. And you're like, what are you doing, dude?
He's the Met Gala on Thursday night.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, dressing the Met Gala. What mentality going into that? Are we just like, oh, we're just here to fuck around
What was
tonight?
the theme that year?
So the theme that year, that's a great question. I think it was, so it was camp. It was camp.
That was the camp one?
The camp one. So
That's a hard
it
theme.
was very hard. But what we ended up doing was he was wearing polo, so matching brands again. He was wearing Polo Ralph Lauren, and I designed this really huge long cape that was all of like old school polo scarves, and just taking this concept of like
He does like a scarf.
Yeah,
too.
he wears scarves all the time, and being like what a polo head is like, and what would be a polo head's wet dream. He probably is going to want to have all these amazing silk pieces, silk rare polo pieces into this one big thing. And that was kind of the concept that we went with. He had this huge cape. He had $100,000 worth of Tiffany diamonds dripping from his hat. It was a crazy
So
vibe.
Met Gala is just like for designers to just fuck around.
No, you gotta be a theme though. Like
you fuck
that's
around
what's hard.
still, Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the thing. You're like building the biggest, baddest thing you can do to garner attention.
Yeah.
The ideal in that is you're marrying your brand, your core brand elements into that thing that garners attention. But it's a pomp and circumstance show.
It feels like it just feels so much like Hunger Games District 1 and like that one night.
Yeah.
That like we all watch. It's like the climax of the show where they're like,
And it's a Monday.
what are the worst people do it? It's just like coming in looking like Ewoks.
The good thing about Met Gala though,
I like it. I think it's
funny.
funny.
Actually have fun. Like I think it's very
That's
rare.
right.
We talked kind of about that. Like when you have all of these like gathering experiences that are often really boring. I've never been, but for everybody that I've talked to that has been, they're like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, I actually had fun. Like,
So when people are
because the doors are closed when you're in there
the doors are
too.
closed.
That's the difference, and that's the difference between like award shows and that is like, hey, we can let down our hair and I can take shots. I don't give a shit.
Got
and
it.
know
So
what
it's Rich
gonna be.
Halloween.
Yeah,
Halloween.
Rich Halloween.
I can live with that.
Rich Halloween. I love
It sounds
that.
like a party we want to go to.
I want to go to Rich Halloween
I'm like,
so
For
bad.
sure. It's
I
Rich
really
Halloween
wanna go to
for
Rich
sure.
Halloween.
Rich Halloween really sounds like a vibe, and I get to judge it.
Oh
What?
my god.
And then
That
some
should be
girl's
the
just
next
gonna
theme.
walk
That's
out
the
with
thing.
pouring blood on her head, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what's happening?
I want to go to
I
Rich
want to
Halloween
be in that
so
party.
bad.
Like if we
For
were on
sure.
the outside of that party,
Yeah.
we're like, I want to get into that.
So they're not taking themselves seriously in that
I don't
moment.
think so.
Everyone's like, dude, I'm gonna be crazy.
I think
It's
you
Rich
want-
Halloween.
it's the one place where you can like, you know what, I'm gonna do some shit I never did before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And for me, I'm really excited. I hope I have the opportunity to dress people for the Met Gala this year and the full creative freedom to do what I would like to do, because it's just again, it's like the one place where you can go as avant-garde as you possibly want, and if you have the freedom for someone else to trust you with full creativity, there's nothing better you can do in the it's entertainment, it's fashion entertainment. I can make a shoe. You know, like I could literally turn you into a cleat if I wanted to. You know?
So is it your Super Bowl as a
Yes,
fashion designer? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, the interesting thing is there's only two ways you can go. You can go like I'm classic and I look fucking amazing,
yeah.
or you go all the way. If you like halfway commit, you suck and it sucks.
You suck in everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the thing with it. And for me, it's absolutely the Super Bowl. And I say all the time, like, there are so few people that do this. Like, dude, I'm in the NBA of this thing. And I've got to, you got to remember that, like, there aren't a lot of people that do what you do. And it's a privilege to do what you do. And because there was a time where you realized it wasn't a job and you didn't think it was a job, you know? So, like, I think when I think about it like that, I get excited about the Met Gala.
For sure,
I
I get it.
about red carpets. I'm like, bruh, this is an opportunity to be able to, like, show people what beauty can look like and what, you know, certain things can look like on these frames. So I try to like get as creative and excited about it.
We do have to wake up on those types of mornings where it's like you gotta like think about your 10-year-old self following you around and be like, yo, we're doing the fucking Met Gala today? Like, what are we talking about?
What are we even
This is
talking
crazy.
about? Yeah. If I told 10-year-old me that I know NFL quarterbacks, I'd be like, oh man, that dude is the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you remind yourself of stuff like that, I think it makes it much easier to like be easy with yourself on your journey as you go through all of these changes of becoming the entrepreneur that you want to be, you know?
That is hard. Yeah.
Dude, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, and hope to even work with you in the future here. Hopefully, we get enough swag someday.
Let's
to be able to do it.
Let's make the purple banter fly and get busy. I'm here for it.
I love it.
Let's go to rich people Halloween.
Rich people Halloween. That's
We gotta
the
rich
rich
people
people Halloween. Okay, we gotta go.
We gotta go.
Love it. All right. Over and out.
Over and
God
out.
bless you all.
Yes.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war.